Welcome back, guys. It's Colin with the Sun Pirates TCG, bringing to you a Gundam deck profile. So this time around, I won first place at my new type challenge event, bagging us this very nice aerial rebuild, along with the top 4 Soletta. So these are the same price cards from the first combat events at Gen Con, but I'm still super stoked to have won the aerial for myself this time around. And shoutouts to Dex Tournament Center for running such a great event. So now for the list. We won with Blue-Red Aggro, cyber-newtype ping, Pepsi ping, whatever you want to call it. It's pretty similar to what we've seen perform at other major events. But this time we do have an added twist, as not only are we playing the main cyber-newtype package, but we are also playing the unicorn package. So it's actually pretty on theme to the show, funny enough. But yeah, funny story behind this is that I saw this idea from some Japanese lists on Twitter the night before at like 2 a.m. with the boys Arvin and Trevor. We playtested it a bit, and the concept felt pretty sweet, so I made a few changes for myself and figured why not, and I just ran it at the tournament. So without further ado, let's get into the card by card. We'll start off with the stuff you normally use. So for the vanillas, we have 7 total of the level 2 1 cost 2/2s in Zaku Mariner and GM. You can play whatever ratio you want of these. You can play Gin if you want. Most lists in this archetype play between 6 to 8 of these 2/2s. I will say, as a small note about these ratios for myself, this is really sweaty and kind of marginal, but I like to do 4 copies of GM specifically because when your opponent doesn't know what you're playing, early on you can drop like 1 or 2 GMs without showing your second color, and your opponent could think that you're either on blue-green aggro or blue-red aggro. Again, it's super marginal in my opinion. It probably doesn't matter a whole lot as far as whether or not it would change what your opponent does, but it is nice to have that extra bit of psychological warfare. Like, you might as well, right? And then, for the rest of the vanillas, it's 4 copies of the Rizel. Not much to say here. This guy's just overstated for what he is, being a level 3 2 cost. And I would even argue is one of the main draws to playing a blue aggro deck, funny enough. So that's it for the vanillas. Next, we'll go into the pingers, as I like to call them. So 4 gun tanks and 3 anxious, so 7 total of this type of card that, does a damage on deploy. We cut the 4th Anxia to make room for the Unicorn package and other tech cards, but we still have 7, which is great for getting rid of weenies from the aggro decks and making more efficient trades against, like, the blocker decks, right? And then moving on, we have the cyber-newtype or Merida package, as I like to call it. So, of course, it features 4 copies of our main girl, Merida Cruz. Being an excellent pilot, not much to say there. Of course, we pair her with our 4 copies of the LR Kshatriya, really strong card right now. Just pinging 2 things on pair, pinging a 3rd thing with the Merida Cruz just lets you gain so much tempo out of nowhere. And then, of course, as a bit of top end, it's 2 copies of the Banshee Destroy mode. Fairly standard. It's just your finisher in the late game. When you have 12 and trash, you just go attack out of nowhere and end the game. And then the last slot in this package is typically 1 to 2 copies of the vanilla Kshatriya, as you've seen in a lot of other lists. However, I opted for 1 copy of the Unicorn 02 Banshee Unicorn mode. So it's a level 4, like the Kshatriya, but it does have that win paired ability, just for being 1 more cost, to rest a 3 HP or lower guy. And it does have inverted stats, being 4-3 instead of 3-4. Which, funny enough, I do like that stat line a little bit more right now because 4 power lets you trade into a lot of blockers right now. For example, Ale Strike and Perfect Strike when they're not paired with Kira. Also trades profitably against things like Lefrith and the Striker Pack token. And most importantly, because this list is not playing the Earth Federation package with like Amuro Ray, Arc 78, and Gun Cannon, I did want to still have access to a resting effect in the deck, so this is where I could think of putting it in. And honestly, this card was really good. It saved me quite a bit in the mirror match, and honestly, I would even consider playing a 2nd copy because of that. And moving on to the spice of the deck, as I like to call it, so we have the Unicorn package. So it's going to be 4 copies of the Unicorn Gundam Unicorn mode, level 5. 4 copies of the pilot Banagher Lynx. And then just 2 copies of the level 7 LR Unicorn Destroy mode. So like I said before, we are playing this package instead of the Earth Federation package with Amuro Ray, ARC-78, and Gun Cannon. So there's quite a few reasons for this. For starters, you actually have a little bit more reach and sustainability in the mid to late game because making this link pair and just letting you draw that extra card means that you can dig more towards additional bodies like extra resells to put on the table, or more importantly, like finding additional copies of your Maria Cruz to link with your Kshatriyas or whatever. Another point is that Unicorn's ability to fetch back your Bernager when destroyed gives you more access to pilots on average throughout a game, which is something I've always had an issue with the normal list, is that sometimes you will have trouble finding enough of your pilots because, you know, they're not searchable and there's only 8 of them, right? So having the ability to kind of double up on your pilot usage with the Bernager is really nice. You know, Bernager drawing potentially additional copies of Unicorn mode to link again, draw another card, keep punching your opponent's face, or even picking up the Bernager when destroyed and then putting on something like your level 4 Banshee. You turn it into a 6/5 monster, which is pretty big, and then you still trigger that when paired effect on the Banshee, or even more importantly, you can put it on your Kshatriya because it triggers whenever you put any new type on. So you put the Bernager on, becomes a 7/6, and then you still get to ping 2 things, which is really nice. And then even something as simple as, you know, having a resell or an Anksha out, turning into like a 5/5 and a 6/5. It's just really, really big numbers that your opponent usually has to commit like a whole link pair or 2 bodies to deal with. And again, you're the proactive deck, so your opponent is spending more time typically having to deal with your bodies than actually like outracing you. And then not only that, but of course we have the typical combo with, you know, going like Unicorn, Bernager, link pair, swinging, and then tagging out into the level 7 destroy mode and then swinging again, resting a blocker or whatever. But normally I don't really go for that combo. It's usually just spamming Unicorn modes, drawing more cards, and then letting your opponent have to deal with this link pair by having to trade back into it. And then by the time they do, I just hard play the level 7, and I just swing with the Bernager and just rest their last blocker or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty similar to what you would see in like the blue-white aggressive Unicorn decks. Of course, there's only 2 copies of the level 7 destroy mode. I could see running a third, but the issue with this is that since we're not in white, we don't have access to overflowing affection. So I was kind of worried about bricking on this, like drawing too many cards of this one early, which is not what you want to be doing when you're an aggressive deck like this. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the main unit and pilot lineup. As far as the commands go, of course, we're playing 4 copies of Show Resolve. We still need to be drawing some cards to gas up in the mid game. And then a couple copies of Close Combat. You can play Battle of Aces if you want in this slot. That's perfectly reasonable as well. There's honestly been pros and cons to Close Combat. The reason why I was playing Close Combat is to kind of further respect the aggro decks. Being able to like shoot away a 2/2 without taking too much damage, especially since we're more of a later game deck because of the Unicorn package. Also to respect things like blue-green, being able to shoot down another GM or a Zaku, for example. And especially for my local meta, aggro is very, very prevalent, so that was the concession that I made. Now, there are points where I would have preferred Battle of Aces, you know, especially against the slower decks, being able to combo with something like Inaksha or your Kshatriya, and then dealing the additional 3 damage. So there's definitely, like I said, pros and cons to it, and you can just pick whatever you like for your local meta. And then last but not least, we have the base lineup. So I was playing 5 bases, again as a concession to aggro being very popular in my local meta. It's 3 Vesalius and 2 Corsica base, pretty standard. I'm only on 2 Corsica base. I honestly want to cut it down further, but I understand why it's a strong card. The reason why I've been kind of whatever on it is because Sword Strike is a very popular link pair going around right now, and just having your Tolgeese token being bounced by Sword Strike feels pretty bad. It's also really expensive to cast, you know, being a 3 cost base as opposed to Vesalius being a third of the cost. So there are times where the Vesalius specifically saved me because I needed the rest of my resources that turn to deal with what my opponent was doing, and then being able to use that last resource to put a Vesalius down to make sure I was safe. So That was something that this could do where Corsica could not. And of course, Vesalius has that damage pumping ability, which is very nice. I'm not sure where I would land yet now on these base ratios. I could even see myself playing the 1 cost 6 health base out of red, potentially to further respect aggro. But like I said with the close combats, I think it kind of depends on what you expect out of your local metagame, and for regionals as well. And here's the list fully laid out. If you skip to the end, I would kindly ask that you at least listen to my explanations first before asking questions in the comments, though I guess I can't really stop you guys from doing so. As some closing thoughts, I really do like this idea of playing the Unicorn package in a more aggressive shell like this, as opposed to the usual blue-white shells, especially with the Benager being able to draw you into more important pieces like the Merida pair, as I've mentioned before. I'm still not sure if this is better than playing the usual Earth Federation package with RX-78 and Amuro. I think for most folks interested in a blue aggro deck, it would be hard to convince them to not play Amuro specifically. But I do encourage to at least try this version of blue-red. It's super fun, and I think there's still quite a bit to explore with these ratios. For full transparency, the level 3 and level 4 lineups felt a little bit anemic in my experience, specifically because we weren't playing the Earth Federation package. So, like I said before, definitely let me know in the comments what changes you would make and how they felt if you tested them. If nothing else, this was a really fun version of blue-red to try out. I don't know if this is what Bandai intended when they designed these cards, but it's also really cool that we get to play a deck that's on theme with the anime featuring the LRs from the Gundam Unicorn series. But anyways, I rambled on enough. Let me know what you guys think. Remember to like and subscribe as always, and thanks for watching.